children. That's the American dream. That's what we strive for. That's what we sacrifice for. And that's what Democrats' radical policies are destroying. Today, the ex-chairman of the Federal Reserve said the U.S. economy is heading towards stagflation for the first time since the 1970s. Remember, in the 1970s, Democrats had control, at then late 70s, of the White House, of the Senate.
Schumer called on the Labor Department to join him in his fight to get Biden to forgive $50,000 in federal student loan debt. During a roundtable with Elizabeth Warren and union leaders, Schumer said there was a false narrative about whose student debt cancellation would benefit. Schumer stated, "Let's dispel one awful myth right here. That is not a problem that concerns the wealthy or the Ivy League. It's affecting working class people." Schumer also appeared to be speaking directly to Biden, who has repeatedly framed canceling student debt as a handout to the well-off. Schumer and lawmakers have made it clear that they will continue to push for student debt cancellation, and the Biden administration is grappling with the fact that the idea of student debt forgiveness infuriates many Americans, including those who never borrowed for their education or went to college. Taxes on employees making more than $400,000. The bill has gained some support, but is so far stalled in Congress. A big update, everybody. For Social Security and stimulus checks, eligible people can start applying today for additional stimulus assistance, and there are several programs that have been created that are aimed to providing financial help to Americans during this time. Today, people in Connecticut were able to start applying for a tax rebate just for families. The rebate, which was created as part of the budget bill that the governor signed into law last month, provides taxpayers with a state tax rebate of up to $250 per child for a maximum of 3 children. Any Connecticut resident who claimed at least one dependent, 18 or younger, on their 2021 tax return may be eligible as well. And while not everyone was qualified to receive the rebate, the Department of Revenue Services estimated more than 300,000 households can meet eligibility. Those applicants may see the extra money relatively soon. The filer status income threshold is single to married filing separately $100,000 or less and head of households. The rebate is for middle-class families. However, those who have higher income rates may be eligible to receive a reduced rebate based on their income. The period to apply began this week and ends on July 31st. The Department of Revenue Services said eligible families should start to receive their rebates in late August, right before the start of the new school year. The rebate came as the Biden administration pushed inflation as a top priority. It recently announced proposals aimed at boosting the U.S. economy. However, some of the presidential plans will need support of Congress, which could be a challenge. Governor Lyman said, "We created the state tax rebate to give Connecticut families with children additional relief. The application period is now open, and I strongly urge all families who claimed at least one dependent child on their 2021 tax return to submit an application as soon as possible, so that this rebate can be sent to you with no delays." When asked about rising inflation, McConnell told reporters, "We're going to have to squeeze this inflation down and get past the problems created by the Democratic government." Fewer Americans applied for jobless aid last week, with the number of Americans collecting unemployment at historically low levels. The Labor Department reported that applications for unemployment benefits fell by 11,000 to 200,000 for the week ending May 28th. And first-time applications generally track the number of layoffs. The 4-week average for claims, which evens out some of the weekly volatility, dipped by 500 from the previous week to 206,000. The number of people collecting jobless benefits for the week ending May 21st from the previous week also fell, down to 1.3 million, the fewest since December 1969. Experts say that the government and American workers are enjoying historically strong job security 2 years after the crisis plunged the economy. Experts say that American workers Now, weekly applications for unemployment aid have been consistently below the pre-crisis level of 225,000 for most of 2022, even as the overall economy contracted in the first quarter and concerns over inflation persist.
My suggestion would be that we have an opportunity to take this committee to Alberta for a little bit of a field hearing and see for ourselves, because I think we could learn a lot.
Yeah. Senator Murkowski, you and I went to visit, and you and I went up to Alaska, and when I left you, I went right down to Alberta and talked to all of our friends there. I was, on a bipartisan way, we were both very embarrassed that our country did not turn to ourselves. Alaska was not asked. Our producers in America were not asked. Our friends in Canada were not asked to step up production and help us. Let's help the rest of the world keep ourselves independent. All we're trying to do is a common sense approach. What West Virginians are asking the same questions that you're asking in Alberta and all over Canada, and the same as you're asking in Alaska. That was the reason I thought it was imperative that we invite our friends down to show the interconnecting that we.
Among other leading Democrats who had been long leery that a suspension of the federal gas tax, which has stood at 18 cents a gallon for decades, would translate into lower prices at the pump. Representative Neal stated, "We've got to figure it out again. Who gets the money?" And all of a sudden, it's a tiny savings for the consumer and big savings for the oil companies. It doesn't accomplish the goal that we want to see. What the administration idea is, and then we'll figure out how to react from there. In promoting a gas tax holiday, Biden said it would help struggling families through their bustling summer travel season. He's not only urged Congress to suspend the federal tax, but also called on states to suspend their own fuel taxes, which averages at 26 cents a gallon. The House Majority, Steny Hoyer, is another Democrat skeptical that a gas tax holiday would be effective, largely out of concern that the savings will be absorbed by retailers and wholesalers, but not passed on to consumers. Hoyer reiterated these concerns, though he's not ruling out the support Biden's proposal before taking a closer look at it. 6 ongoing online petitions called for Congress and President Biden to deliver recurring stimulus checks of $2,000 until the crisis ends and have now collectively passed 3 million signatures. The latest Change.org petition for monthly direct payments was created by Denver restaurant owner Bonin. It asked for the U.S. Representatives and the Senate to pass legislation that is going to provide a $2,000 payment for adults and $1,000 for children immediately, and continuing regular checks for the duration of the crisis. A second smaller petition calls for Biden and congressional lawmakers to join Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and other politicians who have recently supported recurring stimulus checks. A group of Democrats have sent a letter to Biden asking his administration to deliver recurring stimulus checks, everybody. Folks, what do you think about President Biden and the fourth stimulus check? Can he get the job done or not? Chuck Schumer has made a big announcement on the new financial aid. Many states and cities are putting funds towards programs that would guarantee Americans with a stimulus check every month. The Social Security COLA for 2023 could be the biggest in decades. However, that increase is monthly checks may not be enough. The Senior Citizens League, an advocacy group, sent a letter to members of both the House of Representatives and the Senate recently. The group is ramping up its calls for new $1,400 stimulus checks to be sent at once to Social Security beneficiaries. The letter was signed by Rick Delaney, chairman of the Senior Citizens League, and he said that we believe that a special stimulus for Social Security recipients can help defray the higher costs that people could face if the next year's COLA bumps them into a higher tax bracket, causing higher tax rates on their income and surcharges to their Medicare Part B premiums. Next year's Social Security COLA is projected to be at least 8%, driven by rising consumer prices. Yet that more generous increase may not be sufficient to help recipients, some of whom have had to cut back on their spending on food or seek aid from food pantries or SNAP benefits. The Senior Citizens League is advocating for changes to the method by which the annual COLA is calculated. The SSA currently uses the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers to determine whose changes. Now it's also known as the CPIW, and it tracks spending by